My name is LaFaro Williams, and this is my needs assessment, Arizona State University Online. Purpose of this assessment is to assess the available resources and housing opportunities for individuals that complete residential treatment but are homeless in Skagit County. The issue is individuals that are homeless have completed inpatient treatment for substance use issues, but are left without housing. They are then forced back into the same environment that is non-conducive to recovery, which increases the chances of relapse. Agenda. I plan on doing interviews in person and over the phone with several agencies. I plan to collect data from these agencies that list resources available in the Skagit County. Then I will reflect and have some recommendations. CCS Recovery face-to-face interview with Christina Hadding. CCS is an outpatient agency. Christina Hadding has been working at the agency for 13 years. She informed me about the homeless population and how people from our agency that send people to inpatient, the counselors that work with these individuals are told not to find housing for these clients before they go to inpatient, because once they're inpatient, their housing situation can change, the area they want to live at can change, and it seems best that the inpatient facility facilitate that on their way out of the door or on their way to discharge. So basically, she told me about the programs available through outpatient that once a person get out of inpatient or wants treatment in an outpatient setting, that they have access to, which one is the HARPS program. The HARP program allows $1,500 for each individual. It's like an 8-month program. You have to do an interview once a month, 10-minute interview with the person that's over that funding. You can use the funding for housing, for clothes, for all types of things, but you have to be in Skagit County and you have to be clean and sober for 90 days. Once again, the impact to someone who's getting out of inpatient treatment, getting into an outpatient program, they have to be clean 90 days. That is a gap that a person could be homeless that won't have access to any of these funds until the 90 days hit, which can prove challenging. Flex funds offer alternative means to access funds to help with certain things, including housing. But once again, you have to do an assessment at the outpatient agency. Once you get out of the inpatient, you have to wait till your services start. Then within the services, with 2 weeks to 3 weeks, you can start allocating these funds and having help, and the funds take time and they are limited. So once again, you can see the difficulty with clients that get out of the inpatient treatment center. So Pioneer Center North is an inpatient treatment provider. I interviewed John Thorne. He was telling me about how Pioneer Center works and how counselors spend most of their day counseling and giving strategies and coping skills for those who have substance use issues. Their main objective is not find housing. And sadly, I report that he informed me that most people who leave there that came in homeless leave homeless. And it's basically put on them to find housing or set up housing before they discharge. Some counselors try their best to assist in this process of finding housing, but once again, like outpatient, the inpatient seems like it puts more of the effort towards the client who is struggling already with drug abuse or substance use. So yeah, it's kind of difficult. Community Action was a place that just serves as a hub in the community to help with certain aspects to life, such as homelessness. So I interviewed Jen Milton, who's a housing manager, who told me about the application process and how it can take. They actually have 50 person wait right now that for people that are homeless who are looking for housing, but they have to also get through the application process. They can't be using drugs. And this process, she informed me, can be anywhere from a week to 6 months. She said it's based off of priority, and priority usually is family, women with children, or just women, or people struggling with domestic violence. But once again, a person just with inpatient with substance use issue is not considered a priority and can be moved in the back of the list and have to wait. So you got that same situation of someone getting out of inpatient, coming out with no housing, going to these programs looking for assistance, but the assistance is so far between. Basically, I'll go to my reflections about this. Identify the needs for intervention strategies. So basically, in my research, I brung up a need. Everyone I did several more interviews. All of them I can't put into this slide because it's only 8 minutes, but I've identified the need that someone has to do something about this because it is causing major issues to the people with substance use issues who go to inpatient, homeless, looking for a new life, get out and come right back into being homeless, being around the same environment. So one good thing that I'll say came out of this is I identified a need. And I also introduced this topic to agencies. So as I did my interviews, you can see the look on people's faces as I interviewed them about, yes, this topic does need to have someone address it. And I did create a plan to address the issue. Basically, there's some things that we can do that I'll speak about on my next slide, recommendations that can help with this issue. The opportunity to interview and talk to different agencies was amazing. I went around. I haven't done this before in my profession. You know, we have conferences, we do things like that to kind of bring the community together. But to go individually to each session, each place, and do this interview was great. I established new connections within the field. I did get numbers and cards of people who are working in the same environment. It's much more work to do in this population. It's a lot more stuff that we should be doing to help this population, and not just the homeless population, but the population that are getting out of inpatient that are homeless. And then the experience. Another thing I looked at is the experience of being homeless. As I conducted interviews, some interviews over the phone, I act like I was a person that was homeless, and I can see the distance between the person over the phone and how much they're willing to help compared to when I did interviews and act like I was a researcher for the college. You can see the conversation change. So that was something that I found was big. And the influx of homeless people was a conversation that I had with two agencies. One was the Friendship House. Specifically, the Friendship House informed me that the community doesn't even want the homeless population. So, I mean, the majority of the community, she informed me, doesn't even want the homeless population around. They feel like the more that is done for homeless population, the more homeless population influx the community. So it's kind of like one of them things where you want to help, but the community is not for it because it brings more homeless in their eyes. So a lot of work need to be done, a lot of communication. Recommendations is when I did do the face-to-face interviews, I wish I would have went in more of a client compared to dress neatly and doing this research as a researcher for a college. I wanted to conduct a blind interview is what they would call it. So just acting like I'm a person that needs help with housing to see what it really like for the client. I look at the cost of looking at the cost when I bring this issue up. You know, one of the biggest things and to get people aboard with this movement of trying to find housing for these clients is bringing up the cost compared to inpatient. Like when you send people to inpatient, it's not cheap. So if you continue to do this as they continue to relapse, you're spending more money than you would just do on finding housing for clients. And then one of the biggest things I've seen is that some places have resources only within their agency. I think putting a list together of all the available resources in every agency and putting an accessible tool like a pamphlet or something that lists every single agency, what they offer, what kind of housing is available, every number, all into one packet to provide the client as they look when they're in inpatient and outpatient for housing will be very good for them. But it seems like each agency needs to come together to do this because it's more like the agency has their own things going on, like heart funding, flex funds, and another agency may have another tool to use instead of bringing all of it together to help each client. And one of the biggest things that was recommended by several people is possibly set up case managers inside the inpatient facility. This can just be one or two case managers per inpatient facility that help with just specifically finding people inpatient housing when they're discharged from outpatient. Thank you. You have a great day.